Hi, it's Jessi from a different angle because I got a new pair of shoes and I'm testing to see if they're comfortable enough to work. So let me try to explain this video concept without over-explaining it. The idea is I read a book, based on the blurbs on the back, I pick a new book to read. All right, simple enough. All right, so the book I just finished reading is Fevered Star by Rebecca Rowanhorse. Please ignore the Sanrio tabs. They're just what I had. Anyway, I loved this book. It was really good. Different from the first. I mean, if you like the first, I do think you'll probably like this one. If you were ambivalent on the first, if you at least liked the characters, I think you'll still like the second. It's not very plot heavy. It's very character driven. A lot of just character building, character growth, setting things up. Very middle book. That's okay though. That's all a review I'll give for this one because I'm not really reading it. I'm just using it for the blurbs on the back. Now, I'm going to skip through authors I've read for before because I'm hoping this will help introduce me to some new authors. So, Ken Liu, skipping, Stephen Graham Jones, skipping, and R.F. Kuang, we're out. Which leaves us with two, S.A. Chakraborty and Tochi Onyebuchi. I'll make sure I get that pronunciation down. And I'm going to go with Tochi Onyebuchi's Riot Baby, specifically because I don't really want to start a series for this one. And the blurb here says, engrossing and vibrant, black sun left me with my jaw on the floor. And so, I'll be reading Riot Baby to kick off this vlog just as soon as the hold comes in at my library. I am 50 pages into Riot Baby, so that's like maybe a third of the way through the book, 50 pages in. Not super far, but far enough to like know a little bit about what's going on. So the premise of this, I'm really bad at holding my phone. The premise of this is that there is, what is the name of this boy? Kevin. Yeah. So Kevin is born during a riot in his neighborhood where like a bunch of the people in his neighborhood react to police violence and cause a riot. While he's being born, basically the whole neighborhood gets burned down, and so his family moves to Harlem. The other situation going on is that his little sister Ella has these abilities. So the one way they manifest is that when uncontrollably, she will sometimes have like visions of the future for people, which often aren't pleasant because of the kind of area they are living in. But also she starts having other things she can do, like explode rats or create light, things like that. So that's kind of what's going on. I'm not entirely sure what the plot is here, like what this is, if it's just about Kevin growing up, just about his life, or if there's something more. So where I'm at, and let me check what the blurb says on the side. Yeah, I don't know. There's something that happens in the book that isn't mentioned yet, but the blurb says something that hasn't happened yet, so I don't know. And I'm just interested to see where this will go. It definitely has some messages it's trying to send about gang violence and community and police brutality that I'm not quite sure what they are beyond just a general like police brutality is bad. So I'm intrigued by this. I'm not super excited by it yet. It's written in like a written in like slang for a lot of it, which gotta give a big shout out to my students for helping me understand slang so I can understand this book. But like, it's really my only thoughts so far. We'll see what I think about it at the end, because right now, a little unsure. All right, I finished Riot Baby on my way into work today, and let me try really hard to film this clip before somebody else walks into my classroom. So I really liked it. So I think one of the things I heard about this book a lot when it was like popular. It was really big like a year ago, 2 years ago, and a lot of what I heard people saying about it was that it was really confusing. And so I went into this expecting something very different than what I got, because I was expecting a much more confusing book than this, and to me it was very straightforward. So the things about gangs and community kind of faded after that first third of this book, and the rest of it was really about how the system of crime and punishment we have in place in the US keeps is built up to exploit Black people. So it talks a lot about, the beginning had a lot about police brutality and police violence, and then as it goes on, it goes into the prison industrial complex, and then how the system isn't really built to release you, to actually rehabilitate criminals. It's actually made to build criminals and make criminals worse and keep them there as long as possible. And that even when you get out, the system is still exploiting you in one way or another. And it was exhausting. And that's the whole thing that kind of threads through this, is two sides of it, is right, trying to find a solution and the hopelessness that comes from everything you can do being what's the word? It's going to result in repercussions that might make things even worse than they were before. And the fear of that kind of keeps you frozen and keeps you from ever doing anything, keeps you in action. But also the exhaustion that comes with anger, and how that isn't sustainable, and how you can't just be angry all the time, and how that really leads to capitulation, because it's just easier sometimes to give in. And I really liked it. I really, really liked it. I don't have my rating because I'm not at home on my computer to be able to do everything with that, but I really liked it, and I really liked the themes and the message and the emotion that came through, because Ella is so angry and so exhausted and yet so helpless and fearful, and her brother is too, both of them, and it's just so well done. There's so much emotion in this book in such a tiny package. That's really, I think, really, really well done. So I enjoyed this a lot. I definitely will be trying more from Tociana Bucci, because I liked this, and I liked what was going on in it. Now, for where to go next, I have quite a few options on the back of this one. I've already read the Poppy War trilogy, so R.F. Kuang's out. Now, I could read a Sarah Gailey. I've read Upright Women Wanted and didn't love it, but from what I understand, I think if I tried their novellas, or their novels rather than their novellas, I might enjoy it more. Marlon James is on here, but I'm not really interested in getting into Black Leopard, Red Wolf at this moment. And then there's three people on here. I don't recognize the name, or kind of recognize the name, but don't know their work. So Cory Doctorow, Hanif Abdurraqib, I'll have to check that one, and Mark Oshiro. So I think I will look up their works and then make a decision based on what sounds interesting, what my library has, because Sarah Gailey, I could give a shot, but I kind of want to explore these new authors I haven't heard from before. So I will come back to you with what book I'm reading next and my final rating for Riot Baby. Officially for Riot Baby, I gave it a 4.4 out of 5 on my rating system, rounded to a 4.5 on Storygraph. It's good. I enjoyed it. Great time. For moving forward, I went to the library, put a bunch of books on hold, and I have few options. I have 2 Cory Doctorow, 2 Marcus Shiro books, and a Sarah Gailey book. Actually, I knew the name Cory Doctorow sounded familiar, and that's because I had in real life already on my want to read. Unfortunately, though, this is the only one that doesn't have any sort of author blurbs on it, so I can't read it. So that one's out of the running. But for the other 4, which is Down and Out Magic Kingdom by Cory Doctorow, Anger is a Gift, and Each of Us a Desert by Mark Oshiro, and then Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. These 4, what I think I'll do is quickly try a chapter from each of them. I've never done a try a chapter thing before, but quickly try a chapter from each of them and see which one kind of speaks to me at this moment. Kind of I'm leaning towards one of the Marcus Shiro ones, just because that's the name I've never heard before, but I'm down for any of these. All of them were about the same length, about 14, 15 pages. And this is the order I would rank them in, or maybe this. What I can say definitively is that these two were the only ones that, like, I definitely wanted to keep reading after finishing the first chapter. Because, like I said, I would love to see something a little new, somebody I haven't read before. I'm gonna keep going with Anger is a Gift by Marcus Shiro. I'll be reading this one, and I'll let you know my thoughts when I get into it. I am just over 100 pages into Anger is a Gift, which is like less than a quarter of the way through it. This book is much longer than I thought it was. And I'm really, really liking it so far. So this is about Moss, who is a young, I think he's like 16, 17, young queer black boy living in Oakland. And when he was very young, his father was shot and killed by a police officer. And so, like, he's kind of known in the area because of that, and people kind of, like, expect stuff from him because of that. And that causes him a lot of, like, anxiety and stress, very reasonably. On top of that, he just met a new boy and is interested in him, and things are kind of going with that. But I think the main thing that's actually going to be, like, a plot for this book is that his school is very low on funding, so there's like all sorts of stuff going on with that, but more focused or more impactful is that they have been cracking down on security. So when we start the book, like, the school already has like a police officer that's always on campus who's not great, but then he starts like random locker searches. And before we were interrupted, like I was saying, I think the main part of this book is really going to be on like the school's increased security and the students eventually finding their voice and like fighting back against that. And I'm really, really enjoying it. Moss is such a sweet kid. I love his entire group of friends. I mean, he has a million of them, so it's taking a little bit to get to know all of them and their unique personalities, but they're all really, really fantastic and just fun. And I don't know, I just keep getting lost in the fact that, like, it's amazing that a book like this exists, you know? Like, I don't know. The main character is gay. His best friend is a lesbian. He has a trans friend and a non-binary friend, and it's just like, I don't know. It's cute. And there's a lot of different races and ethnicities represented too, and it's just really, really fantastic to me to actually see a book like this, and I get a little emotional about it. Like, man, I wish I could have found books like this when I was younger, and how would I have figured myself out sooner if I had seen this kind of representation when I was younger and things like that. But it's really good, and I think it gets compared to The Hate U Give a lot, and I think like the parallels are definitely there. About like, police brutality and how do you handle that, and choosing to speak up or choosing not to. But I also think there's almost more, not more, but almost more to it than that. I don't know. I think it's almost a little more relatable because it's taking these big things, and the big things still exist, but they're also, from what I'm seeing, and we'll see how the story progresses, but it breaks it down to kind of almost a smaller scale, and I think in some ways that makes it easier to approach, easier to understand for someone, so I'm really liking it, and if this I'm really liking it, and so if this book is good, I think I'll probably check out more from him in the future, because I'm really into this so far. So we will see how it goes for the rest of the book. I don't know this is the vibe I want to go with, but I was getting ready for bed, so this is the vibe you're gonna get. I'm here to review Anger is a Gift, which I loved. Oh, let me stop crinkling that. I absolutely loved this book. It was so good. So, how do I even talk about this. This book, oh god, it was just, I'm not going to say favorite book of the year contender, but certainly favorite contemporary, or maybe I went back on my spreadsheet and renamed it as literary fiction because I'm trying to like redefine to myself what literary fiction means, and quite frankly I think this falls into that when with it saying such like drastic commentary on like society. It feels like literary fiction to me. But anyway, god, I don't know how to talk about this. I might start crying. Like, I don't cry about books. I've teared up. My eyes start to well a little. I've gotten a little sniffly. I was actually about to record at some point this weekend. I got to record my Greenbone Saga review, and I was going to talk about how like there's a scene in there where I actually like felt my cheeks get a little wet, like I had a tear fall, and how that was a dramatic moment. Meanwhile, I'm laying in bed the other night reading this, and literally there is just tears streaming down my face. Like, I was glad I had the audiobook going because I couldn't see anymore. That's how this book made me feel. And I don't know how to process that this book made me feel that way because I've never had that kind of emotional reaction to a book before. Like, since 2012, A Memory of Light. Is that 2012, 2013? Whenever that book came out. So I don't really know how to process that. What I'll say is I love this book. There were some elements of it very early on where I got that feeling I sometimes get with YA, where I get a little exasperated with the characters because I am past that point in my life where I question authority just for the sake of questioning authority, and really I was never at that place in my life. So like certain things on here, like it starts with the kids protesting metal detectors in their school. I am a teacher. I'm a teacher in an urban school. My school has metal detectors. This is fairly common. And so to me, it was like, I understand, like, it's something new. They see it as an invasion of privacy and all of this. But, like, from the other side of it, I understand why you would do this. Because both in my school and friends that I have that work in other schools, whether in, I've heard stories of kids or been involved in stories of kids bringing knives or mace or whatnot to school. So it's like, all right, I, from the adult side of it, get why things like that are in place. But this really did such a brilliant job of making me actually empathize with the kids. Like, they make it very clear from their perspective that there isn't a reason for this. Nobody in their school has had an issue with this thing before. So, like, why would you need to add this preventative measure for something you've never even seen the, like, and then, like, obviously the way things escalate from there. At some points it felt a little unbelievable to me, and I need to maybe do some research myself, maybe look at some of the recommended reading from the author's note at the back, because I don't know if it's unbelievable to me because it doesn't happen, and this was Mark Oshiro kind of fading into his sci-fi background, or if it's so unbelievable to me because I don't want to believe that this could happen, and I think that's almost maybe a good thing. I don't know. I don't know how to explain that feeling. And like, it was so well done. And I don't want to like talk too much because I'm going to end up saying something that spoils this. And I really feel like this is something you kind of got to go into on your own. Now, there are content warnings. I recommend looking up content warnings for this because obviously it deals with police brutality and racism, and it crosses some lines. It doesn't really get into the homophobia that I noticed. Now, it's pretty okay about, when it comes to that stuff. There is misgender, one or two instances of misgendering of a character. So, like, there are things to be aware of. But if you are in the mind space where you are capable of reading this and you can handle reading it, I really, really recommend it. Like, honestly, I think I recommend this before The Hate U Give. Not that I didn't also love The Hate U Give, I also love that, but to me, honestly, it comes down to how they handled the romance in the books. And I didn't like the romance and the hate you give because it was very eye-rolly teenage. Oh, we're going to be together forever. And I'm like, you're 16. So I think that's kind of the main reason I think I preferred this one, was because, like, the romance in it felt more realistic, more grounded to me than the hate you give. Now, options for where to go next. There are 3 blurbs on the back. One from Maria Nijkamp. I don't remember how to pronounce her name, and you're not going to be able to see this because when I put my phone in front of this, it blocks the light. Kelly Jensen, who is an editor, and Adam Silvera. Of the 3 of these, the one I'm leaning towards is the Kelly Jensen editor of Here We Are, Feminism for the Real World, because I think, like, an essay collection or, nonfiction would be kind of a fun way to round this out, because then it's 3 very different kinds of books that I've read. But I did put a hold on for Before I Let Go and They Both Die at the End, just in case, like, something happens or my mood changes or I'm not feeling it. I'm reading a lot of nonfiction this month, which is weird for me. I've never really had any interest in reading They Both Die at the End, but there's also an Adam Silvera blurb on the front, so maybe that's a sign that's the one I should be reading. Anyway, I'll let you know when that gets here, which one of those I'm reading when they get here, and I'll update you later.
I didn't record a clip of me saying this, but obviously I decided to read They Both Die at the End because by the time the books came in, I definitely was not in the mood for a nonfiction. So, here are my thoughts.
Alright, this is just going to be a really quick clip to let you know that I am more than halfway through They Both Die at the End, but I have, like, literally no thoughts on it, if I'm being entirely honest with you. The premise of this book is that there is a future in which humans have developed some way of knowing knowing when people are going to die. And on the day you're going to die, you get a call sometime between the hours of midnight and 3 a.m. that says basically in the next 24 hours you are going to die. And no more information than that. And we're following 2 kids, 2 young boys. Mateo just recently turned 18. He is kind of a homebody. His mom died in childbirth. His dad's in a coma. We don't really know why. And he just has lived his life very cautiously and has never really left the house, doesn't do fun things. And then on the other hand, we're following Rufus, who is a 17-year-old boy whose parents and older sister died in a car crash like 5-6 months ago. And so he's been living with an orphanage. And it feels like he kind of very recently has adjusted to this change in his life. And they're both going to die. They both die at the end. They both die. The characters are like fine. I don't really love either of them. The writing style will go really, really fine for a while. It'll be a good writing style. Not like the best I've ever read, but pretty good. And then for some reason, Silvera tries to be like witty, like, oh yeah, we're in this kid's head, let's have an aside in parentheses or whatever. And it's like, okay, now you just took me out of the whole story. But I really haven't like gotten invested at this point, and I'm 100 pages in, almost 200 pages in. The one thing I can say, it's easy to read, which is part of why it's like easy for me to just stick this out. This isn't even like something I considered DNFing. But it's definitely not like, there's even like this countdown element to it. Like you would think that would make it really exciting. Like every chapter starts with what time it is and you know they're gonna die before midnight, but like maybe it's just going too slowly for that to be exciting for me. I don't know. It's just not working for me yet. Alright, and I finished They Both Die at the End. This wasn't bad. I know that doesn't sound like the most glowing of reviews. I didn't do my rating for it. It feels like maybe a 3.5 star. It might get closer to a 3.75, maybe even as high as a 4. But I really think it's probably like a 3.5 star read. I just don't have a lot of feelings about it, and I know it's a book that's supposed to make me feel, which I think is part of the problem. Lately, I have found that books that are intentionally written to be emotional don't hit. And I think it's maybe a stubbornness in me. I think maybe it's just like, I know it's intentional. Like, I reread at some point, and every morning the way home gets longer and longer, and I was like, yeah, this isn't doing it for me the way it used to. And I feel very similarly about this, is that like, it feels like it's meant to be emotional, so it doesn't hit. That said, the characters were interesting. Mateo and Rufus started out at the beginning as like, they each have this one character trait, but beyond that, they're kind of plain, which was fine. But then over time, because like the whole thing is they're helping each other grow, they kind of just became each other. And they were really hard to distinguish by the end of the book, if I'm being honest. I like that it didn't go for the obvious things. I really liked all the interconnected stories. That I love seeing that. So I liked that. But beyond that, it didn't do much for me, and it's kind of upsetting. Now, this does have all sorts of reviews at the front. One of them is from an author, Lauren Olivier. I think it's Olivier, not Oliver. Before I Fall. But quite frankly, I just don't want to get stuck. This is going down a very contemporary route, and I think I'm gonna end here. I think 3 books is a good number of books to read. So for this vlog, I started off having finished Fever Star and following the blurb on the back from Tochiani Buchi. I read Riot Baby, liked it pretty good. I liked it quite a lot. And based on the blurb on the back here by Markashiro, I read Anger is a Gift, which was really good. Like, really, really good. Like, probably a favorite good. And then based on the blurb from Adam Silvera on the back here, I then read They Both Die at the End and thought it was fine. And that's kind of a lackluster note to end this otherwise really successful, good vlog on. But these are the books I read in it. Let me know your thoughts if you have read them below. Also, if you have recommendations, maybe some of the books I didn't read or other things by this author, these authors. Honestly, Markashiro, if you have some recs of what books by him I should pick up, let me know. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you would like to see more from me. I love y'all. Bye.